Well, we're here with another Project Gemini, only this one's a little bit different from the others. This is a 1975 TX Sedan. This car is not mine. I'll point that out immediately because anyone who's seen my previous videos knows that I have 4 project cars, so no, this isn't mine, but I'm putting it together for the buyer of this car. A well-known Gemini enthusiast dropped this off to me last night. It needs to be paid for. $400 is what the buyer will be paying for it, but I'm going to be putting it together with a lot of my spare bits and getting it on the road. So yeah, what I'm actually going to do, because between now and when I have to take some time to build my supercharged engine for that one, it's about 2 weeks. So what I'm going to do, between now and then, I'm going to devote entirely to putting this car on the road. I'm going to see if I can do it in that time. So basically, I'll just go through today, as I'm just starting on this project. I'll just go through a few features of the car and what needs to be done. But yeah, I'll try and upload a video every day as I work on it, because I'll be working on it constantly, and we'll see how we go. So yeah, it's a 75 TX Sedan. It used to be a drift car, actually. That's the history of it. So it's got a few features on it that aren't for a road car. Main thing is it had a pedal suspension set up in it, springs, sway bars, shocks, everything, and that's been taken out. So now I've got to replace it with standard equipment, which I do have. It's got good bars on it as well. The body itself is pretty good. There's a few rust spots all over the place, but nothing serious. It's a little bit worse than my TX, which is pretty much rust-free apart from one area. This has got a couple of areas. Good panels apart from one door which has been pushed in, which I'll have to push back out. Ideally, when this car's done and on the road, it's not going to be perfect. This is basically just a very cheap slap together to get it on the road. So as far as the running gear is concerned, it came with this particular engine, which is a 1600, a G161, but it's actually got a 2-litre head on it. And the reason for that is because this car used to be turbo. When it had its manifolds on it and everything, was actually, I'm pretty sure it was fuel injected too, not sure. But it's a common trick to put 1600 heads on 2-litre blocks to raise compression, and the opposite to decompress engines for turbocharging. And that's what's been done with this. So it's got a 2-litre head on a 1600 block. And this is a freshly reconned head as well. I'd taken off the rocker cover and it's very clean under there. But because it's a decompressed engine, it's of no use to the buyer. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it out of the car. I'm going to put this engine in, which is a 1600 and a 4-speed, but I'm only going to take the engine because there's a 5-speed on this car. So I'm going to put that engine with that gearbox in this car. The gearbox is fairly good. It's not perfect. It's not anywhere near as good as the one in my TD, which is basically rebuilt, but it's not. It's half decent. It'll do for what it does. It's got some interesting bracing in the engine bay. This is very similar to what they do on the Opel Cadets over in Europe, which are basically the cousins of the Gemini. I have this whole exhaust system which I took out of my TD recently, which I'll put in. It's a standard system with a hot dog and a cannon muffler on the back of it, which, you know, is half decent. There's that standard exhaust manifold. As far as wheels go, I don't really know what I'll do. I'll probably just put stock wheels on it, and the buyer can work out what he wants to do with it from there. I've mentioned the bars. It hasn't got the front one on it at the moment, but the rear one's on there. It's pretty good. I might actually put chimeras on it, because it's got 2 on the back of this one, and there's also 2 on the back of that one, but the tyres aren't very good, which is the problem, because once this car's running and drivable, it's going to get rego, and it's going to get driven across Adelaide, where I live in South Australia, and it's going to get driven across Adelaide to where the buyer lives, which is on the coast. So it needs to be, you know, drivable and safe, which is the main thing. Here's the interior, which is pretty much non-existent, but it's got a few things. This is actually a very similar Gemini to my coupe, because they were both made in '75. They had a few things that were different to most Geminis. They're typically called pre-ADR cars, because they were made before a particular Australian design rule. I think it was an emission spec design rule or something like that, but we typically call them pre-ADR cars. So a few features, for example, the chassis number is down there. Usually it's on the radiator support. The radiator is slightly different, but there is no radiator in this car, so I've got to cut those mounts out because it's very hard to find one of those radiators. Let's see. Gearbox. Yeah, it is a 5-speed. It's a bit tough. It probably needs oil in it, but yeah, it will do for the 1600 out of that one. So it needs, for the interior, it needs seats. This is my old, if you remember my very first Gemini video, you'll remember this seat because it was in my TD. I don't want to use this one because it's pretty poor. And there's that seat which came with this car. It needs carpet, needs headlining, although I don't know if it will need headlining to be really road registrable, because it's not a safety requirement. It needs door trims. Most of the stuff that's needed for this car I already have. Here's that door that was kicked in, needs to be pushed out. Some piping and other bits and pieces. So I'll leave it there, because yeah, today I'm just sort of finding out what I need to do. Alright, see you guys.